The cabin in the Whispering Woods was a place built from love and silence. It was made of dark, sturdy logs and had a roof of mossy stones, a shelter carved out of the wild for just 2 people. Inside, by the light of a crackling fire, Riven watched his mate, Calum, and felt a cold dread seeping into his bones, a chill the flames could not touch. The full moon was a mere 3 nights away, and the beast inside him was already stirring, a restless, shadowy presence scraping against the edges of his mind. He could feel its raw power, its hunger, its singular, terrifying focus. Last month, during the change, he had awoken with his massive wolf form's jaws mere inches from Calum's throat, a memory that played behind his eyes every night, a nightmare he could not escape. The fear was a constant, heavy stone in his stomach. He, a creature of immense strength, was afraid of himself. Calum, sensing the shift in Riven's mood even before Riven did, looked up from the book he was mending. His eyes, the warm, soft brown of rich earth, held a universe of concern. "You're worrying again," he said, his voice gentle, a familiar melody in the quiet room. He placed the book aside and moved to sit on the fur rug beside Riven's chair, resting his head against Riven's knee. "I can feel it. The tension. We will be all right. We always are." His faith was absolute, a solid, unshakable thing. It was this very faith that terrified Riven the most. He could not bear to be the one to break it. "It's getting stronger, Calum," Riven murmured, his voice a low, gravelly sound. His hand, calloused and strong, came to rest on Calum's hair, fingers tracing the familiar strands. "My control is thinning like old cloth. I cannot. I will not risk you. Not again. Never you." The words were a painful confession, dragged from a place of deep love and deeper fear. The following afternoon, their peace was shattered by the arrival of the village elders. 3 figures, led by the stern and unforgiving Corbin, emerged from the tree line. Their faces were grim, their postures rigid with purpose. Corbin's gaze swept over the cozy cabin as if it were a crime scene, his eyes finally landing on Riven with a look that was part pity, part disgust. He did not believe a cursed thing could love. He believed it could only destroy. "We are here for the boy's safety," Corbin announced, his voice leaving no room for greeting or argument. He spoke of Calum as if he weren't standing right there, a grown man clinging to his mate's arm. "The near tragedy of the last moon has decided our course. We can no longer stand by." He explained the ritual, an ancient, dangerous magic passed down through generations of elders for the most dire circumstances. The severing. A magical surgery that would cut the tether that bound Riven's wolf to Calum's soul. Once the bond was broken, Riven's beast would have no reason to seek out its mate during the frenzy of the change. Calum would be invisible to it, safe, separate, free. Calum's reaction was immediate and fierce. He stepped in front of Riven, a protective gesture that was both brave and heartbreaking. "No," he said, his voice trembling not with fear but with fury. "You cannot ask this of us. This bond is not a weakness, it is everything. It is how I found him, how I calm him, how we survive. It is our love given form. You will not cut it." He looked back at Riven, his eyes pleading. "Tell them, Riven. Tell them we don't need their saving." But Riven was silent. He saw only the image of his wolfish teeth near Calum's throat. He saw a lifetime of this fear, this monthly terror of hurting the one person he loved more than life itself. The elder's offer, though harsh, was a path to Calum's safety. A life without the bond seemed a hollow, empty existence, but a life without Calum in it was no life at all. The choice was an agony. "What if they're right?" he whispered, his voice breaking. He cupped Calum's face, his thumb stroking his cheek. "What if this is the only way to truly keep you safe? I would bear any emptiness, any loneliness if it meant you would live. Please, Calum. For me. Do this for me." The betrayal in Calum's eyes was a physical wound. But seeing the raw terror and love in Riven's gaze, his own resolve crumbled. He would do anything, even this, to ease Riven's pain. He nodded, a single, sharp movement, tears welling but not falling. He would be brave for his mate. The ritual was set for that very night, under a sky devoid of moon and stars, as if the heavens themselves had turned away. In a clearing near the cabin, the elders drew a wide circle in the soil with purified salt and crushed herbs that smelled bitter and old. They lit black candles that flickered with unnatural, still flames. Calum was led to the center of the circle and told to stand perfectly still, no matter what he heard or felt. Riven was forced to the edge of the trees, 2 other elders holding his arms. He had to watch. Corbin began to chant, his voice a low, guttural drone that seemed to make the very air vibrate. The other elders joined in, their voices weaving a net of ancient magic around Calum. At first nothing happened. Then Calum gasped. A faint, silvery light began to emanate from his chest, a light that Riven recognized with a soul-deep ache. It was the visible pulse of their bond. He could feel it too, a pulling, a stretching in his own core, a thread being pulled taut. The chanting grew louder, more forceful. Corbin's hands rose, fingers clawed as if physically grasping the thread of light. With a final, shouted word, he made a sharp, cutting motion with his hands. Riven screamed. It was not a sound of anger, but of pure, unadulterated agony. It felt as if his soul had been torn in two. The world went silent and gray, the colors leaching away. The constant, warm hum of Calum's presence in his mind, a presence he had known for years, was simply gone. Snuffed out. In its place was a void, a cold, silent emptiness so profound it made him dizzy. He slumped in the elder's grip, hollowed out, utterly alone for the first time since he was a boy. But in the circle things were not as they should be. The silvery light of the bond did not gently fade. It shattered like glass. And the moment it broke, a shockwave of pure, gold energy exploded outward, throwing the elders to the ground like rag dolls and extinguishing the candles. The circle of salt and herbs was blasted away. Calum was still standing. His head was thrown back, his body rigid. Where the soft silver light had been, a raging, brilliant gold now erupted from him, so bright it was difficult to look at. It was power. Old, wild, and immense. It was not the gentle love of their bond. It was the fury of a storm, the patience of a mountain, the untamable force of nature itself. A low, echoing groan came from Calum, a sound that was layered with 1,000 voices. Slowly his head lowered. His eyes opened. They were no longer soft earth brown. They glowed with the same fierce, ancient gold light, and they held an intelligence that was centuries old. He looked at his hands, flexing his fingers as if seeing them for the first time. He looked at the groaning elders, his gaze one of mild, distant contempt. Finally, his glowing eyes found Riven's, who was staring in shattered, horrified silence from the edge of the trees. Calum's lips curved into a smile. It was a smile of knowing, of power, of a being who has waited an eternity in the dark and has finally been called forth. When he spoke, his voice was still his own, but it was layered with a deep, resonant echo that vibrated in the chest of everyone who heard it. "You tried to cage a god," he said, the words simple, final, and terrifying. Then, without another glance, he turned. He did not run like a man or a wolf. He simply moved, flowing into the dark forest with a speed that was impossible to follow, the golden light around him fading into the shadows until he was gone. The clearing was left in silence, save for the moans of the elders and the ragged, broken sound of Riven's breathing. The bond was severed. And in its place, something monstrous had been born. The silence that fell over the clearing after Calum's disappearance was heavier than any darkness Riven had ever known. It was a silence that pressed down on his chest, making each breath a struggle. The elders, shaken and humbled, gathered themselves and fled back toward the village without a single word, their certainty and authority stripped from them by the terrifying power they had mistakenly unleashed. Their solution had become a cataclysm. Riven did not watch them go. He remained on his knees in the damp soil, the physical ache of the severed bond a raw, open wound deep within him. The emptiness was a living thing, a hollow echo chamber where once the music of Calum's soul had played constantly. He had begged for a way to keep Calum safe, and in doing so, he had lost him completely to something unknown and immense. The guilt was a sharper pain than any silver, and he wore it like a shroud. For 3 days Riven moved through a world painted in shades of gray. The cozy cabin felt like a tomb, every object within it a reminder of the life he had willingly destroyed. A half-read book by Calum's chair, a mug he had carved for him, the lingering scent of his skin on their bedsheets, each memory was a fresh cut. He could not eat. He could not sleep. He could only exist within the profound silence of his own mind, a punishment far worse than any his curse had ever delivered. Outside, the whispering woods themselves seemed to be holding their breath. The usual chatter of birds and squirrels was gone, replaced by a deep, watchful quiet. The wind did not howl, it murmured secrets to the trees in a language Riven could not understand. A new, undeniable presence had settled over the forest, ancient and powerful and waiting. It was a presence that both terrified Riven and called to the most primal part of his soul, a siren's song heard from the depths of his emptiness. Then the night of the full moon arrived. The change when it came was different. Without the bond to tether him, without the constant, calming presence of his mate to cling to, Riven's wolf did not simply emerge, it erupted. The transformation was a torrent of pure, undirected agony. His bones snapped and reformed with violent fury, his skin tearing to make way for thick, dark fur. This was not a change into a protector, a partner. This was the unleashing of a feral, lonely beast, a creature defined only by its rage and its loss. It burst from the reinforced cabin door as if it were kindling, splintering the wood and twisting the silver-lined lock. It was a monster of shadow and tooth, and it plunged into the forest with a single goal: to run until it could no longer feel the hollow ache in its soul. The wolf ran blindly, driven by a pain it could not comprehend. It smashed through thickets, its powerful shoulders tearing down low-hanging branches. It was a whirlwind of destruction, a testament to a love that had been twisted into pure anguish. Its howl was not a call to a mate, but a scream into the void, a sound of such profound loneliness that it made the very trees seem to shudder in sympathy. It ran until it found a clearing bathed in the cold, brilliant light of the moon, a place where the trees parted as if in reverence. And there, in the center of the clearing, stood a figure. The wolf skidded to a halt, its massive body coiled, a deep, continuous growl rumbling in its chest. Its instincts were a chaotic storm. The scent was Calem's, sweet, familiar home, but it was buried under an avalanche of something else, something immense and ozone-sharp and terrifyingly powerful. The wolf saw a threat, a challenger in its territory, a being of blinding golden light that hurt its sensitive eyes. It lowered its head, lips pulled back from teeth that could shred steel, ready to charge and destroy this impossible thing that smelled like its missing heart. The figure, Calem, did not move. He did not flinch at the display of raw aggression. He simply stood, bathed in moonlight and his own soft internal golden glow, and watched the beast. His expression was not one of fear, but of an infinite, ancient sadness. He saw the fury, and beneath it, he saw the shattered man he loved. Slowly, with a grace that was both his and not his, he raised a hand, palm open and empty. A gesture of peace. Of invitation. The wolf hesitated, its growl faltering. The scent was so confusing. It took a single hesitant step forward, then another, its nose twitching, trying to parse the puzzle before it. And then a voice filled the clearing. It was Calem's voice, the one Riven knew better than his own, but it was layered with the resonance of ages, the sound of wind through canyons and roots growing deep through stone. It spoke directly into the wolf's mind, calm and clear. Riven, the voice said, and the sound of his name, spoken with such love and such power, made the great wolf whimper. "I'm still here. I'm just more." The voice continued, a gentle explanation in the midst of the storm. "They broke the small bond, the simple one. The thread that connected your wolf to my human heart. But they did not understand. They were like children snapping a root, thinking they had killed the tree, not knowing they had only disturbed the earth and awakened the deep, old magic sleeping beneath." The golden light around Calem pulsed gently, warmly. "This power was always a part of me, a seed of the ancient forest itself, passed down through my bloodline, sleeping for generations. Their clumsy magic did not destroy our connection, Riven. It shattered the small vessel that contained it. And in doing so, it poured our bond into an ocean. It is not gone. It is everywhere." As the voice spoke, the god's power reached out, not as an attack but as an embrace. It did not force the wolf to calm, it simply offered a balance. The raging, lonely fury that defined the beast began to ebb, soothed by the immense, patient presence of the ancient spirit. The wolf's muscles, tensed for a fight, slowly relaxed. The snarl faded. The hollow ache that had been its entire world began to fill, not with the simple familiar warmth of the old bond, but with something vaster, something profound and eternal. It was the feeling of a single tree realizing it is part of an entire forest. It was the feeling of a lost wolf finding not just its mate, but its true place in the order of the world. For the first time, the wolf was not a curse to be endured. It was a part of a whole, accepted and balanced by a love that was now as wild and powerful as it was. The change back to human form was not a collapse of pain, but a gentle yielding. The dark fur receded, the powerful limbs softened, and Riven found himself on his hands and knees in the cool grass, naked, shivering, and utterly human. He was exhausted, but the crushing emptiness was gone. In its place was a new sense of connection, thrumming through the very air he breathed, a connection to the forest, to the moon, and to the being standing before him. He looked up. Calem was there, no longer glowing with the fierce gold of unleashed power, but with a soft, internal light that seemed to be the moon's own reflection. He had shed his own clothes, his skin seeming to almost shimmer in the light. He was both the gentle man Riven loved and something magnificent and ancient. He knelt, his eyes, now their familiar warm brown, but with faint golden specks dancing in their depths like fireflies, meeting Riven's. No words were needed. The new bond, this vast, silent understanding, passed between them. It was a choice now. A conscious choosing of each other, not because a magic string forced them together, but because their souls, in all their forms, human, wolf, and god, recognized each other as home. Riven reached out a trembling hand and Caleb met it, their fingers intertwining. The touch was electric, a spark that was both comfort and promise. It was a mature love, a fierce love, one that had been through the fire and had not been burned away but instead had been forged into something unbreakable. Caleb pulled Riven close, and their kiss was not one of simple affection. It was a seal. A vow spoken without words. It was the gentle touch of a man and the claiming touch of a god, a kiss that held the memory of loneliness and the fierce, blazing promise of a future built together. They would face the world as equals, partners bound by a love that was both tender and mighty, a love that was finally and completely free. And if you want to join us for more stories of love that is both tender and mighty, of bonds that cannot be broken, and magic that changes everything, make sure to subscribe to the channel. A new adventure is always just around the corner.